So today we are going to talk about number 6 in our Systems of Abuse series. This is all about intellectual abuse. Now, you're thinking, there are so many different types and forms of abuse. Are these all really valid? If you've experienced it, then you know that this is absolutely something that can happen and it can feel very, very disassembling. So I have the whole series, Systems of Abuse series. This is number 6 in that series, and there are 13 different forms or patterns of abuse that are in this, like all the different slices of the pie around the power and control center hub. So if you're watching this, you think, hey, somebody in my friend list, somebody on my timeline probably needs to hear about this. Maybe somebody you're concerned about and you're hoping they'll watch the video. Share it. Would you just share it on your timeline? That'd be great. And if you are thinking about someone in particular, maybe a spiritual leader or a family member or friend, send it to them. That works too. Share it in private groups that you're in so that others can have access to this information. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and as a part of that, I've been doing this 13-part video series. You can also catch pieces over on youtube.com at the Sarah McDougall channel, and you can check out www.wilderness2wild, and Wilderness to Wild is where you can get free resources, ebooks, online coaching, all kinds of super cool stuff that we have available for you. Coach Bren also does functional wellness coaching post-trauma. That's powerful and fantastic. She's taught me so much stuff over the years. So, okay, let's get down to it. Part 6 of our Systems of Abuse series. Let me know if you're here. Let me know if you're listening. And if you have any questions, drop them in. I'm looking at it right here beside me on the screen. Number 1 of 7 potential signs of intellectual abuse. Number 1 is demanding perfection from you, your kids, other people around them, that is rooted in a need to reflect well back on them. This can happen sometimes in family systems where you have a psychologically, intellectually abusive parent who demands perfection of their children, not just because they have high standards or they really want their kids to excel and reach their full potential, which really shouldn't be demanding perfection anyway. It should be encouraging them to reach their full potential. But where the root motive is, if you do that, I look bad. What is that? That's pride. It's really rooted in selfishness. Now, there is a really healthy way to go about that, and that is, this is our family identity. This is who we are. This is who we strive to be. We strive to be like Jesus. We strive to be kind and to be understanding and to have patience with each other and to start over when we do wrong. But when it is one person holding control over the family saying, if you do that, I'm going to look bad to people that I want to impress, and so you have to do something that's unhealthy for you, that can be a sign of intellectual abuse. Number 2, someone who is insisting that you have to prove that you have a right to hold an opinion. You have to justify and validate or prove that your opinion is valid, because otherwise you don't get to have any of your own opinions. Now, this can often be something that is instinctively done, this need to justify our own opinions, to offer justification. This is a sign of someone who has been through abuse, because very often you become conditioned to give lots of reasons why you feel that your opinion is valid and is reasonable, to justify any decision that you've made, to give lots and lots of context. I even find myself doing that, because in the past there were times when I never was made to feel like anything I thought was valid, and so I learned that I needed to come armed with lists of reasons why my opinion might carry weight or should be considered. I'm still learning my way out of that. So if someone is doing that to you, or you find yourself doing that habitually with someone, it can be because they are perpetrating intellectual abuse and they actually are not treating you as an equal. They're holding power over you in an unhealthy way, and they are demanding, even subconsciously, that you prove your opinions and your thoughts to be valid in order to even exist. Now, there's always the counterfeit to the reality. In a real healthy relationship, both people are going to feel free and to be encouraged to say, hey, well, what do you think? What is your opinion? How did you come to that opinion? And that's not a judgment call. That is a curiosity. I want to know how you got to your opinion. Help me follow the steps your brain used to get there, to make your conclusion if your conclusion is different than mine, and we can learn from each other. That's in a healthy relationship. Being forced to prove it in order to be taken seriously is a completely different matter. Number 3, someone who insults your education level, your intellect, your thinking ability, and acts like they are superior to others. Now, if you're very insecure, there are times when we can easily confuse confidence with superiority. So we have to be careful, if you are a confident person, to not knowingly project superiority. It's one thing to be confident in who you are. It's another thing to assume that everyone else is less competent because you're confident. It can be a tricky line to walk if you are a confident person. A lot of it depends on the motivation. Are you confident because you believe you're superior, or are you confident because you are at peace with your competency? And if you feel this way about someone else, the question then would be, if I feel that someone else is insulting me, is that my insecurity talking? Is that work that I need to do on myself? Or is that coming from the other person giving implications that I don't measure up, and then that's how they think? Is it because of what they think, in other words, or is it because of what I think about myself, and then I need more confidence? So it can go either way. It's things like this that are not physical abuse or sexual abuse can be a little bit trickier to kind of parse out. So I want to challenge you to think. Don't instinctively knee-jerk blame. Everybody's abusive. Everybody perpetrates abuse. I'm just a victim of everybody's abuse. But think about, is this something that's my insecurity, or is it something where someone else is making me consistently, in a habitual pattern, implying that they are free to insult my intelligence? Number 4, someone who dumbs you down, acts surprised if you have something intelligent to say, or assumes that your comprehension level is lower than reality, especially if it's in a way that gives them more power. This doesn't mean someone taking the time to kindly explain to you. It does mean someone who talks to you like a child, or who assumes that you could never possibly understand something. I know of a case once where a very intelligent, competent professional woman, her spouse would sit down with the checkbook and would literally start talking to her like she was 5. Well, you see, if you take this right here and you subtract that right there, you could tell, if you bothered to do that, that we have an issue in such and such. So he would talk to her like this, and it was very dumbed down and demeaning. In the meantime, she's running a whole department at her job. It's not that she can't understand, it's that he is treating her as though she has extremely limited intelligence. Here's one that women who are educated and competent and smart may recognize a lot. And this is something that, if you are a confident and competent woman, you have probably run into quite a bit, but it is a form of intellectual abuse, and that is someone who is intimidated by your brain. If they are flummoxed by your mind, if they can't handle it when you speak intelligently, because they fear that it's going to steal their limelight, or they're insecure and they can't handle you being more articulate than they are, or being able to think logically through a problem, or come up with solutions and problem solve in a way that they aren't comfortable doing. And so they turn around and they try to tear you down because your brain works really well. They're jealous of that. They tell you that, they may tell you that you're insulting them simply because you're thinking sharply. They may tell you that that you're boring, or you're too intense because you have a sharp intelligence, because you're educated, because you are competent in your field. They may try to make you feel like you need to make yourself smaller in order to not overwhelm them or overpower them intellectually, or they may make jokes at your expense simply because their ego can't handle the fact that you have a sharp mind. And so they will express their intimidation in ways that are rooted in their own insecurity, but serve to dumb you down, to silence you, to get you to feel bad about expressing the full bandwidth of your intellectual capacity. If someone doesn't want you to express the full breadth of your intellectual capacity because they can't handle it, that is a form of intellectual abuse. Someone who refuses to allow you the freedom, this is number 6, to disagree, or to hold a contrary opinion to theirs. Now, this is not just because maybe you have theological differences, let's just say, or maybe you have a difference in understanding of social cultural issues, or you have fallen in different spectrums of the political stance, on the political spectrum. So you maybe you have different levels of spiritual understanding or connection with God. I see a comment here saying that her spouse always got mad when she would want to discuss points in their devotional, and so she had to quit having them with her husband because he couldn't handle it if she also had things to contribute. Someone who can't say, hey, well, you see it that way, so I see it this way. Hey, let's look at the different ways that we see it. Let's have a constructive conversation. Someone who just says, well, you're wrong and I'm right, and you need to just get with the program. Someone who's inflexible and rigid and unbending in their opinions, especially if they're more that way in public, in a way that makes you feel that you can only express your opinion to them in private because they don't want anyone else to know that you might disagree with them or that you don't think exactly the same. That's a form of intellectual abuse. Someone who invalidates anyone else who points this out. So let's just say you go to counseling together and the counselor points out that your spouse is unbending or is shutting down conversation or is refusing to allow you to have your own opinion, and they start saying, oh, well, that counselor's bad. That counselor's just on your side all the time. That counselor, I want to switch to another counselor. So if anyone notices their behaviors or inconsistencies and from the outside starts to point it out, then they invalidate those people. That is another source or a sign of intellectual abuse. Now, someone's saying, wow, my ex did that. Oh, did you live at my house? Okay, so it resonates with somebody else too. I love your comments. So here's the thing. A healthy agreement, a healthy relationship should be able to have flexibility and mutual respect where both people are able to have their own opinions. And when there is a core disagreement, that you can sit down and have a reasonable, respectful, listening conversation where each person shares and the other person listens and reflects back to them and says, hey, wow, so it sounds like you're saying X, Y, Z. That's healthy. That's a healthy conversation. Without that, you start drifting into the intellectual abuse arena because one person refuses to engage in healthy, mutually respectful interaction with with the other person on things related to your mind and your brain. If one person is consistently insecure and attacking and always feeling insulted because the other person, because the victim is able to think things through, that shows insecurity, and it can drift into the realm of intellectual abuse. Now, when we're talking about this, we also have to factor in personality differences, educational differences, sociological differences, cultural differences, because all of those can have a contributing factors to how we view each other. Most importantly, in healthy relationships, we view each other with a lot of grace. We're willing to listen to each other. We're willing to share freely and take the risk to say what we really think. And we're willing to have that happen in return. If we're not willing to do that, we're going to run into problems in our relationships. It's just the way it's going to be. Also, I want to remember, I haven't said this overtly in this series a whole lot, but remember that all of us sometimes say and do really stupid stuff. All of us sometimes say and do things that we regret. We're tired, we're cranky. You know what? Yesterday afternoon, I had spent 90 minutes on tech support. So when my son comes in and wants me to do something, I'm like, no, I can't do it right now. And I realized later I needed to go and apologize to him because I wasn't the most patient and I wasn't rolling with his interruptions and his needs. And so, the question that I'm building up to is, does it mean you are an abuser just because you occasionally say or do things that you regret, or you're tired or cranky, or the cares of the world just get to you? No, it doesn't. Single abuse is not an event. Now, occasionally, abuse can be an event, but an abusive system is not built on an event. If somebody punches you in the face, that's an abusive event. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it isn't. But an abusive system is based on the patterns. Where is the person's heart? Where are their roots? What is most important to them? Are they trying to control you, or are they trying to communicate in a healthy way? Are they trying to take power over you, or are they just trying to tell you where they're coming from so that you can work together to come to mutual agreement? Are they overwhelmed and tired and cranky and they need a little grace, or is this an ongoing pattern of devaluation and diminishing and shutting you down and refusing to hear you? Sometimes we make mistakes and we need grace and forgiveness. So if you're seeing this kind of thing happen intellectually in your relationship, you want to step back and look, what is the overall pattern? Does this person do this on a regular basis? Is it part of who they are? Or is this something where I need to recognize that they are a flawed human being making a mistake? So I want to make sure that in these other aspects of abusive systems, intellectual, emotional, verbal, this kind of thing, that we don't jump the gun and start calling everything abuse and everyone an abuser, but that we are also equipped with the tools to see abusive patterns, to see and recognize signs of abusive systems. Anyway, that's what I have to share for today. We are going to continue working through the rest of the other aspects of abuse. And those include, we've already done children, culture, emotional, financial. Today was intellectual, and we've done physical. So next we will have pets and property. We'll have psychological, sexual, social, spiritual, verbal, and power. Those are the videos that we have to the rest of our series. Definitely feel free to catch it over on YouTube after I get it uploaded over there at youtube.com/Sarah McDougall. And if you're not already following on Facebook, I would love to have you like the page and follow it so that other people can see and you get the updates for these in the future. And that's at facebook.com/Sarah McDougall author. If you've loved it, please share it. And if you haven't got my free downloadables, resources, and ebooks and so on, go to www.wilderness2wild.com. all there waiting for you. Talk to you soon.